Hey, welcome. Today, we are diving deep into the story behind one of the most incredible events in modern African history, the Battle of Adwa. Now, in this first part, we're going to look at the calculated deception, the diplomatic mess that basically put an ancient empire on a collision course with a new European power. All right, so to really get this, we have to go back to the height of what was called the Scramble for Africa. After the Berlin Conference, European nations were literally drawing lines on a map, carving up the entire continent for themselves. They totally ignored the ancient kingdoms and cultures that were already there, and these lines, well, they would define the next 100 years of history. It was a time of just unchecked imperial ambition. But right in the middle of all this continent-wide colonization, one nation, Ethiopia, along with Liberia, it's worth noting, somehow managed to hold on to its sovereignty. Now, this wasn't just luck. No way. It was a result of some really smart politics, a deep sense of national unity, and just a fierce, fierce will to stay independent. A will that was about to be put to the ultimate test. So, let's meet our main players. On one side, you've got Ethiopia, this ancient empire, newly brought together under a very ambitious Emperor Menelik II. And on the other side, the Kingdom of Italy, a young nation itself, really eager to get its place in the sun by building its own colonial empire right there on the Horn of Africa. Okay, so Menelik's rise to the top was honestly a masterclass in strategy. The moment his predecessor died, he moved fast to claim the throne. But to lock down his power against his rivals inside Ethiopia, and this is key, to get his hands on modern European weapons, he cut a really important deal with the Italians. And that deal brings us to the document that lit the fuse for the whole war, the Treaty of Wuchal. Now, on the surface, it looked pretty standard, a pact of friendship, trade, the usual stuff. But buried inside its text was a deliberate and very clever diplomatic trap. Here's the heart of the deception. The treaty was written in two languages, Amharic and Italian. But there was a critical, tiny difference in Article 17. The Amharic version said that Ethiopia can use Italy's help with foreign relations, making it totally optional. But the Italian version said Ethiopia consents to, or basically must, go through Italy for all foreign affairs and made it mandatory. A single verb was changed, and it turned a potential friendship into a claim of total control. So what did that claim really mean? Well, it meant Italy was telling the world that Ethiopia was now its protectorate. But let's be real, this wasn't about protection. It was all about control. It would have completely erased Ethiopia's ability to act as an independent nation, forcing it under Italian authority. And Italy, thinking their little trick had worked, didn't waste a single second. Their diplomats immediately started telling all the other European governments that Ethiopia was now under their control. I mean, this was straight out of the colonial playbook. The whole thing blew up when Menelik did something totally normal for a new ruler. He sent out letters announcing his coronation to other world leaders. But the reply he got from Britain's Queen Victoria was a complete shock. She politely told him that because of Article 17 of his treaty, she couldn't talk to him directly. She had to go through the King of Italy. And just like that, the trap was sprung. Now, Menelik at first tried to find a diplomatic fix, but his wife, the absolutely formidable Empress Taitu Batul, she saw the treaty for exactly what it was, in insults and an attack on their very existence. Her words just captured the whole mood of the court. You want other countries to see Ethiopia as your protege, but that would never be. So, after years of trying to negotiate, with Italy just stubbornly refusing to change the language, Menelik had had enough. In 1893, he formally and publicly tore up the Treaty of Wuchal. He rejected the whole thing. Diplomacy was over. The path to war was now wide open. Facing the very real threat of a full-scale invasion, Emperor Menelik did something that didn't just prepare Ethiopia for war, it actually helped forge its modern identity. He put out a call for unity. On September 17th, 1895, Menelik issued this incredibly powerful proclamation. And it was just masterful. He framed the whole conflict not as some political argument, but as a sacred duty, a duty to defend their land, their faith, and their entire heritage from a foreign invader. And the response? It was absolutely staggering. More than 100,000 people from every single corner of the empire answered that call. They assembled one of the largest armies the continent had seen at the time. This was way more than just a military mobilization. This was a national awakening. And the army that came together just showed this incredible newfound unity. You had Tigrayans under Ras Mengesha, Oromo swordsmen led by Ras Makonnen. I mean, some of these leaders had been Menelik's rivals just a short time before, but now they pledged their armies to the cause. The Empress herself was there, commanding her own force. This was a truly national army, united against one common enemy. So, a calculated diplomatic trick had backfired in the most spectacular way possible, creating an unprecedented wave of unity among Ethiopia's diverse peoples. An army of over 100,000 was now marching north to meet the Italian invaders. The stage was set for a showdown that would echo through history. So what happens next? We'll cover that in part 2.